In this video, I'll show you step by step how you can configure the Figaf tool to manage your SAP CPI system. We will go through the following steps. First, we'll register the Figaf tool, then we will add agent, which is our CPI system. Then we'll create a landscape that will give us information about how to transport different objects. We will create test cases that we can use to test things that have changed. Then we will make a change to an iFlow and we will create a ticket for this change. We will track this change, we will test it, we will transport and configure this. Then we'll show you how the monitor works and how you can create alerts for things that have occurred. So let's get started. First off is we want to go to figaf.com/IRT cloud, and I already did that. We will try it out here. Download the trial. You have your email address. And you need to select receive marketing material. And you will then need to approve this has occurred. And once you have approved it, confirm your interest in it, you will then get a login to the Figaf tool, and you can access the Figaf tool at you'll get a link to it, and you'll get a address. So we'll go to this address. You'll need to create a new password. Reset. So now you have created a user. It's going to be your email user and the password you just created. So now we're in. We can just check what license we have. Here you can see what license you currently have, how many of each object you have, and you can press synchronizer to get the latest version and synchronize everything. So now we have done step one. We want to register our agents, and our agents would then be our PI or CPI systems. So we will select our P74 system here, and we will go to agents. We will create a new one, and this needs to be CPI obviously, and we will call it this. We will need to use our S user for it, and in the host we'll put in this. So let me just get the S user. Here's my S user. We don't need to select any of these. We need to find the map host, and we normally will do that at this URL. So it's this URL we need as our map, FLM map runtime host. We can enable this. That should be all we need. And obviously there's a lot more settings you can set up if you want that. If it's productive system, then we will not test as default, which is good. So now we have created the system, and you can do that for all the different artifacts here, all the different systems in your landscape. Once you've done it, you want to press test just to see that the user we're trying to connect works and everything's successful. So that seems to be working okay. So next up is we want to create a landscape, and I only have one agent in my landscape, so that obviously creates a little of a limitations. Landscape will be moved to configuration shortly. So we can define a landscape. We will call it CPI demo. It needs to be CPI. We need to select the integrated transport management. This will allow the Figaf tool to control the transport process. We can select who is supposed to be the administrator of this, or who's supposed to be able to review this, and we can add the users on the system to be that. We are going to move some of these approval to the system IDs here in the next peer release. So first off, we will select our development system, and since I only have one development system, I will be selecting that both for dev and QA. If you had two systems, you would obviously want to select them that matches the right process in your organization. And you can have multiple, so just click add to create more. Once you have created the landscape, you can obviously not change which agents is a part of this. So if you just create a demo, create it with this as approach. If you're using the same system multiple twice, we will be using it as a virtual environment, which means once you import it, import objects to it, we will prefix or postfix some of the qualifiers with the system description. So now we have created our landscape. Let's check out what's next. First thing we want to do is we want to synchronize our landscape, and this is about downloading all the different content that you have in your landscape. So this will download all the packages, all the iFlows, and from the iFlows, all the configuration, value mappings, URLs, and stuff like that you have. And with this, you'll then be able to do versioning of the different objects you have. And obviously, depending on how many objects you have in the landscape, this could take more or less time. But this is pretty fast normally. So let's just give it a few seconds more, and you need to do that for all the different agents you have in your landscape. So we get a small error. Sometimes these does not give us the information. That's okay. We'll just say okay. So now what we can see here is all the different objects in your CPI system. So that's our landscape and our agent. Now we need to create a test case. These steps is obviously not required in this order, but it makes it a good way to show what the tool can do. So let's first create a test case, and we do have one. I think it's probably one of the latest here. It is called CPI. So we have here, we will select it out here, and we can say record messages. So when we're creating test cases, they need to be attached to a test suite. And we'll just create one that's called demo. You can create one for finance, HR, for the specific application, where you'd have all the relevant test suite that makes sense for you. If there is content you can extract it like here. And if you have messages, or how many messages do you want for the specific case, you can also fill it in. In here we can extract data with XPath, so we can get information about if it's a credit memo or an invoice that you're dealing with, because they would obviously be processed differently. And if you got a lot of the same message, it's a good thing to keep them synchronized. So we need to request a license for it. It's okay. We also need DevOps for this. So that should be good. So now we can start the recording. Now we have created the test case. What we need to do is we'll need to start it. And the tool will then switch the iFlow into trace mode. And then we just need to start processing messages on this iFlow. So we'll send a message into it. And this will then process, and now we have processed one message on it. And obviously you need to wait until it has processed the number of messages, and we can then download it. Since we're using the trace information, it needs to be done within the hour before the trace information is deleted. So you need to know a little about when it's going to be executed, the data that you have. And we can see here it's completed. We got one message in 8 seconds. We can see here information about our test case. We got one inbound message, and then we got a lot of outbound messages that is being processed, and looks what the data in these ones are. So that's good. We now created one test case or data from it. If on the agent we can set up automatic polling that will check are there any test cases that we need to pull messages from. It will then do that now and then as you configure it. So let's create the test case for it. So now we have created a test case. We're listening for 2 more messages being processed on this. If you want to, we'll just delete that. So now we are ready to run this. We can specify which agent to run on. So if you have it on multiple agents, you can then run it here. And we'll just select our only one, or we could just say run, which will then run it on the same agent that you already have. And as we can see here, we can see how our last result. Here we can see the result of this processing. And we can see the message was sent, but we haven't received anyone yet. So we just need to pull the messages. So for a demo, this is the best approach for it. But obviously if you're running it with a lot of scenarios, you don't want to be pulling automatically, and then you just schedule the job that does this. So now we can see that it's pulled successfully. There's actually quite a number of errors in it. We need to see what the differences are. So that's something about a property that's changed. We can add that to ignore list. SAP application ID is different. And we also got a date property that's different for these things. I reckon that that's probably the same thing for all these messages. If it was any of the content up here, we could just right click on it and create an XPath that will, or JSON path in this instance, that would then ignore this element. So let's just try to run this again. And hopefully we will then get a successful run. Let's see if it's completed. It wasn't completed at that, or the sending wasn't completed at that point in time. So now it's being processed successfully. And we can go in and view the results of everything that's going. It is successful. If you have your test object, in some cases you're not able to send data to it the same way as you normally would. So if you have this, do not use original receiver communication. And if we apply that, what it will actually do is, once we run the test, it will create a mock service that correspond to the iFlow that you just created. So let me show you what that looks like in here. So here we can see that it should be starting now a mocked iFlow here. We can see it gets a new endpoint than our original one. If we view the iFlow, and then it'll wait until the iFlow started before it starts to send messages. And you can then see here it's then calling the Figaf tool with specific information about what message, what iteration it is currently processing. So with this, it's a lot easier to see what is going on with the message processing at this point in time. And obviously, if you run it like this, you will see some different results, because our mock service may sometimes return different results than it usually got. So see if it's deployed. It's still starting. It may take a little while for it to do that. And yeah, just wait. You can pull the messages once it's being processed, and you'll see some different results. So let's just switch that off for our future testing to simplify our test process. So that was how you could create mocking services on this. Let's see if it's there. Still starting. Good. So the next thing is we want to create a change in this object. So we have an easy way to find these data. We can go around, browse the the iFlow. We can see an iFlow, what are the versions we have. We can open it directly. So here we have the original version, just so if you want to see this. We can see it is using OData requests, and these were the ones that were just changed to HTTP in a copy of the iFlow. And if you make changes to it, it will obviously update this at the new one. So let me just do a small modification of this. Discard the changes I've tried to make. So we will set a new property here. Let's call it 16. Save as a version. So for some reason we got a different version. We can deploy it. And now the idea is that you, from the Figaf tool, so we have now created a test case. Now we want to create a change and register everything that we have done for this change. So we'll go back to our tracking tool. We will do synchronization of this, and this will then figure out what actually has happened to your iFlow, or all iFlows for that matter, so you can see which changes have occurred, what's going on in it, and yeah, what's the change there. So we can see there's actually one new change here. 2. That's the mocked service that's being updated. So it was not under the package. We can see here the customer order was here in 63. What we can then do is we want to create a ticket because we were asked by the business to create this. So we'll say assign to ticket. So it's make to first change. We can create releases. So if you have bigger projects, you can obviously manage that. Who is supposed to be working on this? What's the landscape that you're working on? If you have a Jira ticket, you can put in the Jira number for this. And you want to put some documentation in, because then some developers at a later point would be able to actually see why something was changed. So you can go back and forth between different versions and see what was going on. So here we have linked that this is the iFlow that we have changed, and you can add the packages or all the other objects that's really relevant for this. So if we have our iFlow here, we can see all the objects as a part of this. So we can see the XSDs, the scripts, and everything like that. So that's pretty good. So now we want to check, look about which test cases we have. We have one for this object. We can add it. And the idea is then that you want to make sure that you're maintaining these identical. So we'll run this test case. And since we have switched it back to use our original test case, it will then use that and send the message in on the iFlow, and we can then hopefully pull the results. Let's see how it's going. So now it's downloading, and we would expect to see one of these give some errors. So we'll view our results, and we can see here there's an error here. We can view the difference here, and we can see that there was a difference in this property. We expected 10 but got 16. So we can either just ignore this property, or we can go in and then say, okay, now we want to use 16 next time we run it. So we are maintaining our test cases in this way. We obviously want to run the test again to make sure we're getting valid test cases, because it's a lot better to have results that are real and works correctly. So pull it again, and it will hopefully be successful. So now we can see everything was successful on this one. So we are happy with our tests, what the change we've made, and now we want to transport it. So we'll press start transport, and this will create a transport where we have this specific object. And we can specify here it's this package. We can see everything about it. We can go in here and we can configure what values this needs to have in our development and our QA system. So we can actually go in here and say, okay, in development the API key is this, in production QA it's this. We can do that for the full landscape in just one view. So this one will then be, we can edit here, QA. And do notice that this is our virtual environment that we're using. And for user credential, if the credential does not match, it will give us a warning saying, hey, you're actually trying to use this one. This is not really found on the target system. So be careful on it. We're good with that. And we can send it to approval now. And it's waiting for approval. I also have the approval role. So I get the option to approve it. You can also decline it, but it's a little of a mess with these demos. We can then import it. And this will then try to configure everything for the import. The only thing that we may need to do is we may also have needed to add the package that this is a part of to the transport. So let's see if it works. So now it's doing a synchronization just to make sure everything was imported. We're getting a warning here saying the password was not there. We can update it and make sure it's there and check, and then it will look okay. So as a basis or whatever is importing these things, they would actually be able to see what was going on in this case. So now we have made all the changes that we needed for this. We have transported in our landscape, done all the QA steps. We will resolve it. So now we have resolved it. We can see in here all the objects that's a part of this. We have the registry of all the configurations across the landscape, and we got versioning for all these objects. So next up is we want to create a report that just say, hey, this is what you have done of error and as a part of this. And the idea is you can then take this report show what kind of objects you have, what kind of test cases you have. So we have the testing report here. We can see it ran these and there was this many successful ones. We can see all the objects and we can see the ticket information that we use. So this makes it really simple to leverage, and you can then add this to your Jira ServiceNow for handling these processes. So that was the part about creating documentation on it. So now we have created a ticket, create change, everything we need. Let's try the monitor. So one of the challenges with CPI is that you cannot really create, or if you have multiple iFlows, you can either watch all iFlows or just one iFlow, and there's no in between, and we wanted to create an in between. So for instance, we can create one for sales. We can specify which messages we want to have in this, which period, week, and we can specify specific iFlows that we want to have in this. So let's just try all the ones we just used, and we will save it here. And we can then open the messages. We can then see what iFlows has been triggered as a part of this this process. We can drill in and see only subset of these if we wanted to. As we can see here, it also has all the persistent and MPL attachments that's a part of this process, making it a lot easier to monitor. And the idea is that you can then give users access to specific role. So you have a role that can view payloads and one that can just view the iFlow. This makes it a lot easier to monitor the system. The last thing we have is we also have agents and consumers that can process alerts. So create a default one. That'll create failed. You can also use other data from the OData query. You will create it, or need to have a job. It will start this job. And once it has started this job, you can then, we have a default rule here that is the messages that's being processed. And well, let's see if we have any rules. So we pull here, and then it should go back 5 days, and you can see all the rule alerts you have 5 days ago. So we can actually see there was some alerts here on this schedule. Maybe what was wrong with this? We can drill into it. We can see here's all the payload information that was going on. And in the tool we have extracted, we have created a simplified message, because sometimes when you're using host or ports, they may change between calls because you're not calling whatever the specific one is, but something else. And to do a good recurring process on this, we are removing some of these in the simplified message. So there's actually some socket timeout. Let's just check this. So we don't want next time that we're seeing this error to do the same thing. So we'll just create a rule that says we can order these in steps. We can send it to a specific user. How to fix it. And we can see all the information here, and we can extract data from the payload if we wanted to, and that's relevant forward testing. We can see we have this, and here the rule is defined by an XPath, and it's easy to increase and make it more complicated to handle all the different all the complexity there is in your landscape. So now we can save it, and next time we will receive this alert, it will then be specified as a part of this. And we obviously have an option, so we will only get one notification every 60 minutes, so your email inbox will not be flooded. So now next time we get this alert, we can see what's going on and be able to resolve it faster. So that was the monitoring the alert. So next up is for you to go try it out. You can try the cloud version, as I've done here at Figaf IRT, figaf.com/IRT cloud, or our on-prem version that you can run on your laptop or in your data center at just figaf.com/IRT. It's the same code, same application, that does the same thing. It's just where the data and the system reside. So go check it out. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.